What is real? How do you define real?
You can't jump into cash. Cash is trash. What do? You get out.
Daniel Bayerdorffer is a third-generation maker and inventor. He is also the owner-operator of Numberall, sister companies, Reuleaux Models, and CypherSafe. He's the founder of CypherSafe, which creates metal BIP39 Bitcoin seed storage devices to keep them safe from physical disaster and bad dogs. Daniel, welcome to the Bitcoin Matrix. How are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm doing great. I'm super excited to chat. It's been a little bit in the making. And, I've really gotten to know your products well before you guys became a sponsor, but even more so just kind of studying the sister companies and the history. So I'm excited to get into it.
Yeah, it's good to be here.
Yeah. So I would love to kind of dig into this a bit, especially around being like a third generation maker and inventor. I think this is kind of really interesting. I just had a conversation with Laser Hodl that's coming out this week. And we were kind of talking about Bitcoin and doing things, but also just, I think in our sort of our this state in history, things have gotten so centralized and so many people feel removed from making things and building things. So I'd love to kind of dig into this a bit. What is Numberall and these sister companies? But let's start with Numberall.
Okay. Well, it was started by my grandfather in 1930 on Staten Island, New York. And he actually started making poultry rings or chicken bands, which, have a number and they go on the chicken's leg to keep track of all the chickens. And that became so popular that he started a business with that. And that grew into Numberall because he needed to mark those bands. And so that grew. And then in World War II, we did a lot of business, for all the military buildup. And like North American Aviation used our products to mark their airplanes. And I'm going to pronounce this wrong, the Nordum bomb sight that was used on the B-17 to aim where the bombs would drop. The layout on that was engraved by our company. And then, are you losing my signal here?
Yeah, I lost your video. I'm not sure if we had a broadband issue or so.
How's that?
Yeah, that's
better.
Great. Yeah.
Okay. Sorry about that.
No problem.
So after World War II, the company kept growing, and then in the 60s, my father started coming up to Maine to go hunting, and he liked it so much that he bought some hunting camps up here. And after he ran those for a while, he decided to move Numberall up to Maine. So he started that process in 68. And then when my grandmother passed away in 84, we fully moved Numberall up to Maine at that point. How's that?
Well, I mean, the picture's okay, but we can rock. We can go
All
from
right.
here.
Well, hopefully it won't keep failing. So yeah, my father we moved the business up to Maine in 84. And then in the late 80s, I started working there in high school and, drilling holes and sweeping the floor and, starting with all the basic stuff. And then I went to college for a machine tool. And then I started working at the business full time after that.
So, I mean, can you tell me a little bit more about, what is marking methods and hot stamping? And it started out, I guess, with like sort of marking chicken legs. But now, Numberall products can be found probably like, I don't know, on the space station or NASA type vehicles,
Yes.
and Army in the bottom of the ocean.
Yeah, I skipped quite a bit there, didn't I? Yeah, so basically what our products are used for is marking part numbers or serial numbers or date codes. So like the security seals that the post office puts on like their bulk bags of mail that has a number on there, a serial number, and the company that makes those tags uses our product to mark that. And other various products that you use in your everyday life will have a part number or something of that nature stamped into the metal. And quite often our product will be used for that, like your appliances, like your fridge and things of that nature.
Right.
And hot stamping is basically the same thing, except the marking device is heated up so it will melt into plastic.
When did that start? I mean, maybe that's probably for the evolution of the business, where you're just trying to keep up with maybe different facets of industry and production.
Actually, I think that's been around for a very long time. I think the first application I know of in our business is we made a pencil marker. So like, you remember the old #2 yellow pencils? You could get like your company name stamped on there or something. So we had a hot stamper that would embed foil into that with the heat. So it would give the marking a different color than the yellow.
Right.
Yeah.
And then when you started getting involved in the business, I mean, this is the third generation at this point. Did you always think you'd be in the business? Was there ever sort of a rebelling impulse to try something else, or was it always in your blood? And I'm kind of curious what it was like going through the transition, maybe of moving to Maine and then seeing the business evolve there.
Well, I never lived on Staten Island. I grew up in Maine, but I would visit Staten Island to visit my grandmother on occasion. But pretty much I always assumed I'd work at the business. When I was a real little kid, I thought I'd be a spy or a scientist. But no, pretty much I always assumed I'd be working at the business. And now my son, who's 4th generation, is working at the business as well.
Right. And what kind of roles have you played at the business over the years? I mean, sounded like in the beginning you were sweeping floors and just kind of doing what needed to get done. How has that changed over the years?
Well, I'd also ran some of the machines to make parts over time. And then I started programming the computerized machines to make parts, and also started designing machines that were customized. When a customer needed something slightly different, we would modify our equipment to that. So I would help design that. And, then there's the things that every business owner has to do, like, take care of your insurance and take care of your employees and, all the stuff that you don't enjoy doing, but is a necessity.
Right. And how much the business now, and has it changed over the years? Is it, like you were saying, that kind of maybe augmenting machine? Is it mostly, is it a lot of R&D? Is it a lot of in-house manufacturing? Is manufacturing got outsourced over the years? Is it, yeah.
Almost everything we make in-house. There's a few things that are done outside, like we have big presses to create the force for stamping the parts that we sell to customers. So those big presses are made out of a casting, and that casting is made at a foundry in Maine. But almost, everything else we make in-house, except for like screws and things of that nature.
And what kind of operation are the in-house operations? Is it a factory? Is it like a workshop? Is it several locations?
It's just one location now. There was New York and Maine at the same time, but now it's just Maine. But it's a typical machine shop, which basically is one big building where you have milling machines, lathes, grinders, drill presses, just about any tool that cuts metal.
Right. And so I guess also, another sister company is Reuleaux Models, but I guess that was named after, I'm looking for his name here.
Reuleaux?
Well, I'm sorry?
Franz Reuleaux.
That's right, Franz Reuleaux. So maybe you could tell us a little bit about what Reuleaux Models does and who Franz was.
Okay. Well, one of our products, it's called a Model 50 numbering head. So it's basically a mechanical device that can automatically change the serial number every time you stamp a new number. And that uses things like ratchets and index plates and retaining balls. And everything I'd read in like modern college courses like statics and kinematics, they just glance over those type of mechanisms. So I'd started doing research on how I could learn more about the theory behind things like ratchets. And I stumbled upon a digitized book at the Cornell University's website. And it was all about kinematics. That was basically in that whole scope of engineering was invented by Franz Reuleaux in the late 1800s. And in the course of learning what he wrote, I learned that he also made hundreds of models to help train engineering students on various mechanisms. And that fascinated me. And I started trying to learn more about those. And Cornell also on campus has over 100 of his models on display that you can look at. And I went to visit Cornell and visited the professor, Professor Moon, who was the curator of all those models. And I decided I would try to reproduce some of those models, which is what that company, the Reuleaux Models, is all about, is recreating some of those models that Franz Reuleaux designed.
What are some of the applications that those models are used in?
Almost anything you can think of that has a mechanical movement is based on theories and designs of his. So like even a photocopier that, you know, shuffles the paper around to like do double-sided and things like that. It has mechanisms in there that you would find in his book from the 1800s. Mm. And the people and engineers and designers from that age, you know, they didn't have computers or digital machines that could just be programmed with software. So if they needed a machine to do something, they figured out mechanically how to make it happen. So it might have a cam or a Geneva mechanism that would create motion in a certain way to accomplish what that machine was supposed to do. Or so like your car engine has a crank. That is another mechanism that he explains in his designs. And that's probably the most common mechanism in the world because every engine in existence or every internal combustion engine in existence has that.
Right. What kind of conversations do you get into with your customers or people that use these models or want you to re-augment machines? And has that, those sort of the people involved in those conversations, have they changed over the years?
We haven't had a lot of deep conversations with people about the Reuleaux mechanisms. I mean, Numberall is our biggest business. So that's where I interact. We have the most interaction with our customers in that business. So quite often our equipment is good for like high speed production. Mm. You know, something like a laser marker or something like that is very versatile, but it's not very fast. So like if you need to do hundreds of parts a minute, you know, something like one of our numbering heads is ideal for that situation, which means that we're usually being installed in some sort of assembly line. So we need to make our product fit into their assembly line. And sometimes that requires heavy modification of our parts, our products.
Yeah. And I mean, I guess in some regards, even with definitely with Numberall, do you see the in terms of your customers, do you see that their passion or their interest in sort of these mechanisms or and how these things work has increased? Is it a little bit more corporate and you get sort of a buyer or someone who just manages a large supply chain? Are they passionate?
It's pretty diverse spectrum of customers. So we get all of what you just described.
Right.
Usually if it's a customer that like a, the propane tanks that you use for your barbecue, there's a couple companies that make those tanks, and they make, thousands of those a day or a week or whatever. And they're a big customer of ours, both of them. And we have made special versions of our products for them. And yeah, they will get into the nitty gritty of all the details of our product to make sure it does what they want to do in the volumes they're looking at, achieving.
Right. And what about supply chains in terms of having to, source your materials and make deadlines? Has the last year or two been different?
Oh, substantially. Very much so. The cost of everything has gone up a lot, and certain materials like brass, which is, copper based, has gone up very much, a lot, like 4 times the original cost we were paying 2 years ago. And yes, deliveries are much longer, and sometimes, they say they just can't even get the item we're looking for. So we've had to either just be patient or just look for alternatives to various things, but which has in turn affected our deliveries for our customers. But at this point, most everyone in this industry kind of understands that's the way it is right now. So no one's very upset unless they're in dire straits.
Right.
And I almost think it's a good thing, because it's kind of slowed down people again, and you kind of just reassess how you approach things. You don't get as stressed because you're missing this deadline that you used to have. You understand that there's no way to achieve that deadline anymore, and you're more willing to just plug away until it's finished.
Yeah, I hear you on that. We both got to steal away, I think, maybe about a year ago now, or it's hard to recollect when BitBlock Boom was, but I definitely saw CypherSafe down there, and I got to. That was the first time I got to feel and touch the products before I bought them.
Okay.
And it was great to interact with you guys. I was kind of just trying to lay low, and I didn't even say, I introduced myself or anything. I just checked out the products and got to talk to you guys as a complete stranger, and that was a really cool experience. And just being in BitBlock Boom was great. And but what I find really interesting here is, you're steeped in sort of product building, and I don't mean product building in just design, but I mean like in-house manufacturing and making and designing. And these are really sturdy products and practical devices. And from your background, it seems like you're just primed to be well versed in how to create a product for security and marking. But before we get to CypherSafe, I'm kind of curious when you fell down the Bitcoin rabbit hole. You're a busy guy running these 2 companies up in Maine. When did you come across Bitcoin?
I don't remember the exact date. It was probably 2013, I'm going to say, somewhere in that area. And, I bought $50 worth of Bitcoin when it was around $900. Then it promptly crashed to 300, and I ignored it for several years after that. And I started getting back into it again in 2017. And I don't know, it was just something in the back of my head said I should start paying attention to Bitcoin again, which was very fortuitous. I started listening to podcasts and trying to get up to speed, and started buying again. And then I started learning about Bitcoin mining, and I decided to buy a miner just to experiment, see what it was like. So I bought an S9 back then.
Mm-hmm.
And that's also when the big controversy about SegWit and Bitcoin Cash and all that was going on. So I'd set up my miner like the end of July, got it running. And then I went on vacation with my family. And while I was on vacation is when SegWit was getting activated. So I was basically watching the internet news on Bitcoin that whole day, wondering what was going to happen. And it activated just fine and everything went smooth. And, you know, my miner kept on earning me some Bitcoin while I was on vacation that whole time. So it was pretty exciting that during that whole phase. And that's also when I learned about, you know, hardware wallets
Mm-hmm.
and the necessity of them. And I got a Trezor and, you know, started putting some of the Bitcoin from the mining and stuff on the Trezor. And like a month later, I was at work. I get a picture from my wife over text. And she says, "Is this important?" And it's my destroyed Trezor.
Oh.
And I said, "Yeah, that's my effing Trezor."
Holy shit.
That's or my Bitcoin's on there. And she said, "The dog ate it."
Whoa, are you serious?
I'm totally serious. That's how the bad dog Archie came about as our mascot.
Yeah, I'm holding up the sticker. I was gonna ask. Wow, so Archie's your dog.
Yes,
What kind of dog is Archie?
he's an Airedale Terrier. And
Wow.
if he's not being preoccupied, he finds his own fun.
I didn't. Oh wow. You know, about a year ago, my puppy ate my what do they call it? AirPods
Yep.
and destroyed them. And you know, I get it now. I was thinking it was like kind of like the dog ate your homework. Because especially with the you know, with Numberall and Reuleaux Models, I mean, I was like, oh, I'm kind of curious. So I mean, that's the light bulb moment to, I guess, start CypherSafe.
Yep. Well, I had been thinking, you know, what could I do to help with Bitcoin? And basically everyone just said you should do something that you're good at for Bitcoin. And, you know, I'm a machinist, so I can make things. And then Archie ate the Trezor. And yeah, I said, I'm going to make a way to back up my hardware wallet. I mean, obviously, Crypto Steel was the first, and they, you know, they inspired this whole industry.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to copy them exactly because I didn't really feel comfortable with that idea. So I tried to come up with my own concept. And the idea of decoder rings is what kind of drove the design of the cipher wheel, you know, being round and spinning things. And
Tell me a little bit about the decoder ring.
So you ever seen A Christmas Story where Ralphie gets the BB gun?
His tongue stuck to the pole is my favorite
Yes,
part. That's
yeah.
all I remember pretty much.
Well, there's one scene where he listens to Little Orphan Annie on the radio, and he got a decoder ring in the mail so he can decode the message at the end of the Little Orphan Annie show, and it ends up being Drinker Ovaltine. So that little decoder thing was what he used to do that. So that was just kind of inspiration for the shape and concept of how the cipher wheel works.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, I have a lot of questions. I mean, the products are really sturdy and practical and beautiful in a lot of ways. I'm holding the Cipher Grid now. What was maybe more? I mean, obviously you had goals in mind. Like, can you tell me though, like, how do you achieve, you know, fireproof and waterproof and rust proof?
That's mostly from the material choice.
Yeah.
Like the cipher wheel is 303 stainless, which basically what makes stainless is the amount of nickel and chrome that are input into the steel. So 304 is a very common stainless steel. 316 is more what they kind of call a surgical steel. It's even more stain, corrosion proof. And 303 is equivalent to 304, but it's a little easier to machine, which is what I need because I have a lot of intricate little details that I machine on the cipher wheel.
Right. And obviously, like a nod to Archie is the Bitcoin recovery tag.
That was me learning more about hardware wallets work, where you have derivation paths and scripts that the hardware wallet uses to create your public and private addresses that your Bitcoin is stored in. And I got me thinking that, let's say it's 20 years from now, and they no longer make Trezors, but your Trezor got destroyed in 20 years. How are you going to get that Bitcoin back?
Right.
Well, what you can do is run like an Electrum server or some other Bitcoin software wallet and give it those details that are stored on a recovery tag. And it will be able to search through your old wallet, because you've also entered your seed words, and find all your UTXOs that make up your Bitcoin.
Yeah. That's a nifty device, and something I think all Bitcoiners want to have on hand. You definitely want to avoid, a single point of failure. What can you tell me a little bit about BIP39?
Well,
and sort of, I guess, from a seed phrase perspective, and
okay.
What we're getting at there.
Well, first off, I'm not an expert at BIP39, so I might say some things wrong, and people can please correct me. I'm willing to be corrected on this. Essentially, BIPs are Bitcoin improvement protocols, and they're numbered. They're sort of like requests for comments, like on the internet. And BIP39 is built upon BIP32, which, if I recall correctly, is a proposal to create now I can't pronounce the word, hierarchically determined addresses. And so back when Bitcoin was first created, you just had a Bitcoin Core wallet.dat file, and it would pre-create like 100 addresses. And if you lost that, you lost everything. Whereas with BIP32, if you had the initial seeding of the paths, the derivation paths, you could find all the addresses. And BIP39 is a way to encode that initial seeding of those derivation paths so that you can recover all of your Bitcoin just by that initial data from the seed words that BIP39 standardizes. And that's, I believe it's 2000 or 2048 words that make up the BIP39 standard. And you need either 12, 18, or 24 of those words to back up your wallet, depending on the wallet.
Mm-hmm. And why should I keep my BIP39 seed stored in a meta wallet?
Well, the seed words are your Bitcoin. The wallet isn't your Bitcoin. The seed words are your Bitcoin. If you lose those seed words, you have lost your Bitcoin. So you want to make sure that they just can't be lost to the physical elements, such as a fire or a flood, or a actual physical physical damage, like being hammered into oblivion or something. So writing them on paper is good because it protects you from digital theft, but it doesn't protect you from physical damage. So making them out of a stainless steel or brass is a way to protect them from that.
Right. Definitely want to make them Cedric proof. With the recovery tag, the Bitcoin recovery tag, what is the website link that you provide?
It's a basic information on how to recover your Bitcoin if you don't have your wallet anymore. It tells you the basic process that you're going to have to go through, where you can go to get like Electrum server, and it's the basic information you need to start recovering your Bitcoin. And it's hosted on our website. And, obviously I can't guarantee that website will be up for the next 100 years, but it's the only option I have to offer because, I don't run another website somewhere.
Right. And it's really, I love the maybe the affiliations that you're building here. The Cypher Wheel is now part of Saifedean's Bitcoin Standard Toolkit.
Yes.
And like we discussed, the Cypher Wheel is a unique way to store your BIP39 and slip 39 Bitcoin seed words or other sensitive information. It's machined from 5/16 inch thick 303 stainless steel, not stamped out from the thin 1/16 inch 16th inch metal. And this protects your seed words for the physical disaster and bad dogs. You can also pick up a mount by crypto cloaks to hide your Cypher Wheel. And this is interesting. Fireproof. House fires regularly reach temperatures as hot as 1100 degrees Fahrenheit, 593 degrees Celsius. CypherSafe products are made from stainless steel rated to 2000 degrees Fahrenheit, ensuring that your information remains safe. I still recommend people maybe put it, I don't know, in a box or something, though, to help find it after an 1800 degree fire. You'll have to sift through everything, but it will be there. Waterproof. CypherSafe products are built to last. Stainless steel is used for corrosion and rust resistance, which ensures that your Bitcoin recovery tag and Cypher Wheel will be legible for decades to come. Pet proof. We talked about that. Tamper evident, which I think is really important. I think that's really important for peace of mind, so that if it is where it needs to be and you have any suspicion that maybe someone has come across it, you'll know or not. I think that really gives me a lot of peace of mind, especially if you're going to secure one maybe in a safety deposit box at a bank or an office building.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I really love that. What I was kind of getting at before a little bit is, I get why you started the company, but I think it goes further than that. I think that I'm assuming you wanted to contribute to the space that you wanted to create, and because I'm imagining you're already busy with the other two entities, and this is just a cherry on top in a lot of ways. So what, is that the case? And what kind of more do you get out of it than just, maybe the business in and of itself?
Well, as a lot of Bitcoiners also feel like Bitcoin is the future, and also it's going to help with everyone's future by helping to eliminate or at least weaken some of the things that create a lot of problems in our society today. Obviously, fiat money empowers the government to do almost anything they want. So if Bitcoin becomes what we all hope it is, it disempowers the government to, they have to start getting permission from the citizens again to do the things they want, instead of just having the money to do it anyways, such as wars. If you don't, I'm not saying wars will just end, but it becomes much more difficult to practice war when you don't have access to essentially free money.
Yeah.
If you look at the growth of the government since the Federal Reserve was created in 1913, it's just astronomical. The government was pretty much kept in check prior to that event, because that was also the same year both amendments were passed for that and income tax in the same year. One funds the other.
Right. Were you looking at these things before Bitcoin?
Yeah. Basically, it all kind of started when Ron Paul was running the first time in 2008. And I just happened to go to his website and look at what issues he stood for. And everyone I read is like, I agree with that. I agree with that. I agree with that. And then you get to the Federal Reserve and they're like, I never really thought much about the Federal Reserve. So then I started reading what he had to say about the Federal Reserve. And then I read his book on End the Federal Reserve. And I just started a big rabbit hole of, everything in that vein, and even the more crazy esoteric type of topics too. I went down that whole rabbit hole for like 3 or 4 years. And, when I came out of it, I was a lot more questioning of everything I was told. I mean, I sort of kind of questioned things my whole life, but now I just assume by default that it wasn't true until I could prove it was.
Right.
And that's come to be very helpful in the last, 6 or 7 years, as I think everyone in the Bitcoin world would agree with.
What do you think about in the last 6 or 7 years has it been helpful to be in Maine? My impression of Maine, and I hate to generalize because you get all types of people in all kinds of places, but I kind of have this inclination, or that Maine has builders, people a little bit more individualists, maybe off on their own. Maybe it's smaller towns. I don't know what it is. I remember like maybe my uncle, he went to Maine to go to like an 8-month workshop on building furniture.
Okay.
And that was the place. It was in Maine. And is there a vibe like that in Maine? Do you feel like you're generalizing here, but does it feel a little separated from the rest of the union, or got a different frequency?
Well, just to be specific, I think certain parts of Maine are. You get south of Augusta, not so much anymore.
Right.
We've had, especially during the quarantine, we've had a lot of people move to Maine. So there's been less of that than there used to be, but there's still definitely a core of that. But I think that's probably true in most states. There's parts of the state that, they're proud of the fact that they're somewhat independent and take care of themselves and accomplish and build things on their own, instead of just expecting it to just be there.
I guess I have 2 questions. Do you feel like where you are in the state, you could kind of check in on these global national issues, but it's like, and I imagine maybe this has changed over the last 5 or 6 years, but like, can you check in and check out? It's like, yeah, I can peep that. I can see what's going on there, but I'm just going to live my life here in this place. And I could kind of ignore that and just check in. And whether has that like been less so over the last 5 or 6 years? I feel like the national conversation where I am is the local conversation, and there's no checking out.
Well, before the quarantine, I'd say that was definitely true. During the quarantine, our governor had the mask mandate and, all the typical, rules that all these strict governors and mayors and such tried to push. And it was very frustrating to just watch the compliance to all that. I mean, it was impossible to avoid completely, even around the, northern Maine. In fact, there was, one town that I kind of considered a escape from all that. And then they had an outbreak and the state came in, and every place you went after that clamped down, and you couldn't even walk in the door without a mask and things of that nature. And it was very disheartening to see that all transpire. And even when the governor's emergency power finally expired last May, like it had a deadline of like Sunday at midnight. Some of these stores, even if you went in at Sunday at 6 o'clock in the evening, they still wanted you to wear a mask. So it's not completely escapable, I think, at this point, but there's definitely much worse places than where I live. What
about your work? And I'm even in a lifestyle sense. I'm sitting here, I can't stop playing with the cipher grid. As my 9-year-old son, who talks about his OCD all the time, it's very satisfying just placing them together. The craftsmanship is unreal. And you know, I'm just kind of thinking a lot about the attention to detail and the 3 generations of marking and hot stamping, and sort of like, really, I mean, just really, I couldn't imagine an individual more set up to, you know, fashion these tools. There's a lot of satisfaction come from this. One way I relate is even when I was a corporate spreadsheet jockey not too many moons ago, there were opportunities to be creative within that role.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe few and far between, and it was very satisfying. You know, and something I think that we both want to touch on is, you know, as an individual, do you get a lot of satisfaction out of making these things, just building and creating and tinkering?
Yes and no.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely enjoy designing them and coming up with a way to manufacture them. But I also see all the flaws and all the ways I could make it better. And I feel like everyone I'm sending out the door, the person's going to see all those flaws as well. You know, all the things I could have done better. So it's hard to say, okay, it's done now. I have to stop trying to make it better. But other than that, yes, it's very enjoyable to produce something that you were involved in from the very first step to the very last step.
Yeah. I can relate in that, in the sense of like with the pod. I mean, as soon as they're released, I feel like they're not mine. They, you know, it's a collaboration and they just exist. And I listen to them and I would think about all the different things I could have asked, or different ways we could have went, and everything like that. And, you know, I definitely appreciate that, but it is incredibly satisfying to create and produce and put something into the world. Do you think that where I feel like we're at a place where not enough people are building and creating? I think we're a consumption society for the most part. I do wonder whether moving to a Bitcoin standard would change that dramatically or not. I mean, I assume it does, but I also don't know how fast we move to a Bitcoin standard. Where do you think we are with this? Do you think a lot of people are creating? Are your children, is that something you're trying to instill in them? Or even if you are their peers into that kind of stuff?
Well, just a side thought I had while you were saying all that. I think part of the problem is, for lack of a better term, the elites of this country have pushed us into a consumer type country and not a manufacturing country, because it benefited them financially. And, you know, we're at least 2 generations into losing or starting to lose our manufacturing. We've pretty much lost it, but it took a long time. It took at least from the 70s to start this process. And, you know, they're all enthralled with, I mean, China in the 70s was a poverty-stricken nation. Now they're number 1 or number 2 superpower in the world at this point. You know, it's questionable what we are in comparison. And how do they do that? They did all through manufacturing. You know, you don't have wealth if you're not manufacturing. So we need to go back to manufacturing just to become a wealthy country again. And, you know, as I've mentioned to you before, it also helps people to have a sense of pride when you can make something or create something, or, you know, be artistic, anything that makes you feel like you accomplished something. That gives you a sense of pride. And that gives you the ability to not blame everyone else for your problems, which is what's happening left and right all the time now. It's everything's everyone else's fault. But when you start making things or taking care of yourself, you get the chance to feel pride, and that makes you want to do it even more. And then you can build generational wealth, which is what Bitcoin is here for. And yeah, as you accumulate more Bitcoin, you don't want to spend money on frivolous consumer items, because you see that if you just hold on to your Bitcoin, you're building savings for your future. So it's a sort of a self-reinforcing thing.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. It's a big reason, or one of the many reasons I started this podcast. Especially going into quarantine, I wanted to come out having maybe something new in my life. I wanted to create, produce, put some signal into the world. It was one of the things that was really great about going to BitBlock Boom, meeting other Bitcoiners, meeting you there, and CypherSafe. What was your experience at BitBlock Boom?
We love BitBlock Boom. That last one was our third one. And Gary Leland just really does a tremendous job with that whole conference. And he goes out of his way to help you. You know, if you need a favor or help, like, you know, we had to store our booth items a day early, and he just let us keep them right in his room there. And yes, everyone you meet there, you can just feel the energy of everyone being so excited about Bitcoin and the future it's bringing. And the talks there are the same thing. It's the same energy. You know, I can't say how great that conference is. I can't say enough how great it is.
Yeah, it was a really special time or experience. And, you know, I also want to touch back on what you said with China and manufacturing. And I agree a lot there too. And I think that, you know, we can't really be sovereign if we're outsourcing our manufacturing. I mean, you can even get into sensitive issues like medicine,
Yes.
and just in, you know, supply chain things. And we could talk about computer chips and ASICs and all that stuff. I mean, we really need to bring a lot of that stuff back on shore. And I think through that, by having those things on shore, then we create more and innovate, because those things are happening here, and the R&D then is happening alongside the manufacturing. You know, it's yeah. I mean, it's you know, strange times, and I you know, I just really I'm enjoying getting to connect with people who are trying to, you know, improve the world, and kind of, you know, be a big part of this movement to make the world a better place. And I think that it comes out in so many more ways than just, I mean, I love these devices, but getting to meet people who, you know, kind of share the same thoughts, and are seeing some of the same things is also, you know, been a really awesome experience. So I definitely kick it back to you for any, you know, parting words. I hope we covered everything that you were hoping to cover. You know, I really appreciate, you know, your products and your sponsorship, and definitely the support on Twitter as well. So I leave it to you for any parting words, and to let people know where they can find, you know, CypherSafe products.
Well, we're definitely happy to be a sponsor of your podcast. It's a great show. We enjoy it. As far as anything else I can to end the show with, no, I can agree with your last statement. You know, it's really enjoyable to talk with people that sort of are on the same plane as you about these various topics, especially when most of your day you're dealing with people that do not think that way or feel that way. So, you know, you can say these things to them and they might be willing to listen to you, but they aren't really there yet as far as thinking that way as well. So when you finally get to talk to someone that is there, it's kind of a rush in some ways. But,
Yeah. And what I think is also fascinating, I mean, you know, I think at the end of the day, Bitcoin is a tool that helps the individual achieve things. And at the heart of that is sovereignty, being self-sovereign. And that's sort of it's a new responsibility in a lot of ways for a lot of us. Maybe I shouldn't say new, maybe for some people it's an old responsibility and a new tool, but you know, kind of discovering this tool, and then you kind of think about it as the toolkit, because there's these other complementary tools that help you enhance and use this tool to the best of your ability and in the way that it's meant and designed to be. So, it's like talking to a tool maker,
Yes.
and it's really great. And I love your work. It's fantastic. So, and the attention to detail is just beyond. And getting to hear your story, just really adds layers to sort of, it's like do your own research, don't trust, verify, but then you go and validate, and you see, it's not just someone who stumbled into making this amazing, awesome tool. It's someone who, has put generations and studied for years on how to make these kinds of tools, and now is just applying it to Bitcoin.
Yeah, and hopefully we're doing a decent job. But I'll let everyone else tell me if I am or not.
Yeah, fair enough. I hear you. I definitely appreciate and welcome the feedback. So, Daniel, this has been so dope. I appreciate it so much. Thank you.
Well, thank you. It was great talking to you.
Oh, well, actually, let everyone know where they can find CypherSafe products.
It's CypherSafe.io, and our whole product line is on there. You can find it.
There you go. Thank you so much, Daniel.
Thank you.